Today is Wednesday, December 18th. We have new developments in two different executives' murders. What's next for the suspects accused of killing them? Also, President-elect Trump is taking another news outlet to court over its election coverage. Plus, deadlines are coming up if you want to get gifts shipped in time for the holidays. American teens seem to be changing their drug and alcohol habits. And an actor behind a fictional war hero is receiving real honors from the U.S. military. Those stories and even more news coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. The man accused of killing United Healthcare CEO is now facing new, more serious charges from a New York grand jury. For example, murder as an act of terrorism. Law enforcement officials explained, saying the murder was carried out not just to kill, but to cause shock and attention and intimidation. If the suspect is convicted on the most serious charges, he could be sentenced to life in prison without parole. And investigators say they have a lot of evidence since they've recently put together a more detailed timeline of his actions around the time of the shooting and interviewed members of his family. But the suspect also has an unusual amount of support, since the murder seems to have tapped into widespread anger about the American healthcare system, specifically health insurance companies and their executives like the one who was killed. In just one online fundraiser for his legal defense, more than 1,000 donations have come in. He's hired a high-profile lawyer in New York City, though so far she has not commented on his new charges. By the way, the page was turned on another business leader's murder this week as well. A tech executive named Nima Momeni was found guilty of murdering Cash App founder Bob Lee. Prosecutors say Momeni stabbed Lee last year in a fight over his sister. On the other side, Momeni's defense lawyers tried to argue the killing was an act of self-defense, saying Lee tried to assault their client first. But in the end, the jury convicted him. Momeni now faces a sentence of 15 years to life in prison. The general in charge of Russia's chemical and biological forces has been assassinated. Ukraine claimed responsibility for taking out Igor Krylov yesterday, saying he was killed by a bomb hidden in a scooter outside his Moscow apartment building. He's the highest-ranking military official to have been killed inside Russia. He was a target since the Ukrainian government has blamed him for using banned chemical weapons in Ukraine. Russia denies using any chemical weapons, but American intelligence backs up at least some of Ukraine's claims. One U.S. senior official told the New York Times the Biden administration didn't know about plans for the assassination ahead of time, but they apparently believe it could be counterproductive because it could trigger a severe reaction. And Russia has already promised to punish Ukraine for General Krylov's death. High-tech radar that's being used to hunt drones from the battlefield in Ukraine could soon be used to crack a drone mystery here in the U.S. Top New York lawmakers have asked the Homeland Security Department to deploy the system on the East Coast while officials try to figure out exactly what's going on. The FBI has received more than 5,000 tips in the last few weeks, and they've all been cleared. They say what they've found is a combination of airplanes, helicopters, stars, and drones being flown legally in several states, but no national security threat. Meanwhile, Congress is considering new legislation to give federal, state, and local governments more authority to address drones. That could get done as part of a short-term funding bill that's due by the end of this week. It appears President-elect Trump is on a mission to target media companies for what he sees as unfair coverage. Most recently, he sued the Des Moines Register newspaper and its former top pollster. The lawsuit accused them both of brazen election interference and fraud. It's over a poll the paper published that showed Trump on track to lose Iowa in the latest presidential election. He ultimately won the state by more than 13 percentage points. So now Trump says the polling miss was on purpose, that the numbers were fudged to mislead American voters to influence the outcome of the election, and he's asking for damages. The Des Moines Register says it stands by its reporting, even though it acknowledges the poll did not reflect the ultimate voting result. It's not clear how the lawsuit will shake out, especially since the U.S. has some of the strongest protections in the world for news coverage of public figures. But either way, reports note that lawsuits like this can drain companies of time, money, and other resources. And readers could lose trust in newspapers just from the bad publicity. You'll remember Trump also reached a settlement with ABC News this week after suing for defamation. The president-elect also has ongoing lawsuits pending against CBS, The Washington Post, and others. And he has promised to keep suing news outlets and even social media influencers next, saying, quote, "We have to straighten out the press." Today is the last day to sign up for insurance through the Affordable Care Act if you want coverage to start on January 1st. The open enrollment period for the ACA, or Obamacare, started several weeks ago, and the original enrollment deadline was Sunday, but it got extended because not as many people had signed up for new plans as expected. Now officials say there could be a last-minute surge. At last check, there were more than 45 million Americans who had insurance through the ACA. That's the highest Obamacare enrollment rate on record, and pretty substantial considering how half of Americans still get health insurance through work. Note that more than a dozen states have their own healthcare marketplace set up, and some of them have later deadlines as well. Either way, you can find information on how to apply at healthcare.gov. More news is still coming up, but first, thanks to our sponsor, ZocDoc. I love so much about my life, but let's be honest, life's list of things to do is a bit much sometimes. So I welcome any tools to help make it all easier. And when it comes to finding the right doctor and making appointments, ZocDoc can help me cross those off my list so much faster. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality, in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, and click to instantly book an appointment. We're talking about in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, eye care to skin care, and much more. You can filter for doctors who take your insurance, are located nearby, or are a good fit for any medical need, and who are highly rated by verified patients. Plus, ZocDoc appointments happen fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking. You can even score same-day appointments. So whenever I need a new doctor, I check ZocDoc. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. Now back to the news. Here's your warning. Christmas is just a week away, and Hanukkah starts the same day this year. So no matter what you celebrate, shipping deadlines are quickly approaching for gifts you want to get delivered on time. The U.S. Postal Service says you should get your domestic packages in the mail today if you're using Ground Advantage or first-class mail, though you buy yourself an extra day or two if you use Priority Mail. Other carriers like UPS and FedEx say they have services for customers to mail packages the 23rd and have them arrive the next day. But of course, that will cost you. If you want to ship directly from online stores, those deadlines are coming up too. Target says today is the deadline to guarantee presents by Christmas or Hanukkah. For Walmart, it's Friday. Amazon Prime, it's Sunday. It turns out more teens are saying no to drugs and alcohol lately. That's according to a new survey from the University of Michigan. It says 2/3 of high school seniors surveyed had not used drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, or e-cigarettes in the past 30 days. And that number jumped to 80% for sophomores. And it's the highest number of so-called abstainers since the annual survey started in 2017. The only substance teens report using more of is nicotine pouches, with 6% of seniors saying they'd used them in the past month as compared to 3% last year. Public health experts say there could be several reasons why that hasn't been the case for most substances, but many believe the pandemic has played a role. They say many teens start experimenting during their freshman year, and this year's class of seniors would have been freshmen when the pandemic started. So they've been going to fewer in-person gatherings. And for some, that means less peer pressure and less time to make drug and alcohol use regular habits. Pretty soon, you may notice a difference when you book a hotel or buy a concert ticket. That's because of new long-awaited rules from the Federal Trade Commission that say customers need to get the whole price up front, including fees. As you know, there's been talk about this for years, but now it's official since the FTC went through more than 12,000 comments about how hidden fees have affected consumer spending and competition. So starting in April, companies that sell tickets for live sports and concerts, as well as hotels and short-term rental platforms, will have to list all fees before checkout. This is just the latest step in the Biden administration's plan to weed out what the president calls junk fees. Regulators have also addressed airline and baggage fees, bank overdraft fees, and more. But in response, some Republicans and industry lobbyists have accused the Biden administration of overreach. And like the other rules put in place recently, the future of this one is uncertain. Trump's pick to head the FTC was the only vote against this new rule, saying the agency should not make a rule it won't enforce. Still, the rule was approved by a 4-1 vote. For now, it's set to go into effect in 120 days. You've heard of body cameras for police officers, but what about body cams for Walmart employees? The retail giant is testing a program that puts the cams on its workers, and it's already rolled out in at least one Texas store. Various outlets have reported that the body cams are supposed to protect workers and to document potentially violent interactions with customers. This comes after the parent company of TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and HomeGoods also started equipping some of their employees with body cams to deter theft. As for Walmart, the big box store says it will evaluate the results of the smaller pilot program before deciding whether to make body cams a broader policy. Hollywood star Tom Cruise has added another award to his trophy case. This one is from the U.S. Navy. Cruise was awarded the Navy's highest civilian honor, called the Distinguished Public Service Award. The military branch cited his movie roles, saying they've helped people appreciate the Navy's highly trained personnel and the sacrifices they make. Cruise's military roles are some of the most memorable of his career. Of course, there's his role as Maverick in the Top Gun movies, and the Navy said both the original Top Gun and its sequel caused spikes in enlistment. Cruise has also portrayed service members in Born on the 4th of July, A Few Good Men, and the Mission Impossible franchise, although his Mission Impossible character is a member of a fictional force. Cruise accepted a medal from the Secretary of the Navy yesterday and called getting the award an extraordinary acknowledgement. Well, that's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Work Wednesday, when we break down one interesting career or work-related news story every Wednesday. But first, I want to tell you about our sponsor, Trade Coffee. We've all been there scrambling for a last-minute gift that doesn't feel last-minute. With Trade, you can send a coffee subscription directly to someone's inbox in minutes. It's fast, easy, and guaranteed to impress. I love that gifting a Trade subscription is not just gifting coffee. It's an experience. I can tell you from having a Trade subscription myself that it makes drinking coffee so much more enjoyable. I love getting that fresh bag of coffee in the mail, feeling the excitement of trying something new, and sipping on delicious tasting coffee that I know is high quality. So when you gift this type of experience to a loved one, they'll think of you every time they get a new freshly roasted coffee perfectly matched to their taste from one of the top small batch roasters in the USA. So, are you ready to cross that last gift off your list? Trade Coffee is offering their best savings of the year on gift subscriptions right now. So head to drinktrade.com/newsworthy to send a personalized coffee subscription in minutes. Again, go to drinktrade.com/newsworthy while Trade is offering their best savings of the year on gift subscriptions. Okay, now back to Work Wednesday. This holiday season, one tradition may be going out of style: the company party, or at least as we once knew it. Office holiday parties have apparently been on the decline since the mid-2000s. One survey from career coaching firm Challenger Gray & Christmas found just over 60% of companies plan to have a holiday party this year, compared to 90% in 2007. And in a different Harris Poll survey, less than half of workers said their employers were throwing a holiday party. Reports say this is just another example of how work culture has evolved, and it's done so for a few reasons. For example, there's the impact of the Me Too movement that made some people question alcohol-infused parties. Plus, there was COVID and the rise of remote work, complete with virtual parties. And the surveys say younger generations of workers increasingly prefer events not centered on alcohol. They would rather parties that focus on games and other activities instead. But less than half of Gen Xers and only a quarter of boomers agree. While different generations have their own ideas for what makes a good holiday party, most can agree on one thing. Almost 80% of workers say they'd prefer a bonus to a party. Well, thank you so much for listening today and for sharing the show. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.